Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rem and Sam podcast. We're dropping this one a little bit later. Apologies for the late drop. We're recording this Wednesday morning. We tried to record last night, but last night, Super Tuesday, we started mixing it up a little bit. I guess we just got a little bit too crazy because the deep state stepped in and just said that that podcast can never be aired. We tried to post it where IT's working on it right now, but IT's got a lot to work on because they didn't just take the pod down. Our guy, Ian Fataport, the Supreme Court got back together and ruled that Fataport just can't be on pods right now. So they announced that Trump can be on a ballot, but apparently Ian Fataport can't be on a podcast at this point. If you guys want to, I don't know if he's been banned on Twitter or X at this point as well, too. But if you guys want to go follow him at Ian Fataport, maybe you could see what his latest activity has been. I'll have to go see if he's been banned. I know he's been quiet, so I'm sure that the deep state definitely has something to do with that. And we'll get Fataport back as soon as possible because we promised Fataport to continue to talk about these NFL draft prospects. We just had the combine. There's been some crazy names. I know we were thinking about talking about receivers and Xavier Worthy. I think Fataport's last tweet before the deep state stepped in was about the Xavier Worthy 40-yard dash at the combine. And there's some, the LSU guys. Adunze, obviously you got Marvin Harrison Jr. So, and then the Brock Bowers, like they're the entire rest of the draft. So, we got to get Fataport back as soon as possible to continue to break down the NFL draft. We're super excited for that. We've got some other big stuff in the works as well too. But yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to do like a mini episode for a Wednesday morning episode because we do have to head to work here today. But let's see if we can get some quick Super Tuesday results. We were tracking a little bit of it, like we said, during the pod, and there was a couple of close races. I know Biden was like a 1 seed versus a 16 seed in just all the states and just cleaning house, but there was a American Samoa thing, as well too, where they get some delegates, and I don't know. Shout out to American Samoa, but there was I forget the guy's name, but I think there was an upset victory there. And for the other side, the big race was the Vermont race, the one that was close anyways. Oh, and Haley ended up pulling it out. 17 delegates to Vermont. I mean, obviously not going to do anything in the big picture, but that was the most interesting race of, at least the closest race for any of these states. Massachusetts, Trump wins 59-36. She tried to keep it close there as well too. And for a while, for the first half, Trump was winning, and then the third quarter she really took over. I think there was like a third down where Trump didn't. It was like a 3rd and 5, and they maybe got it's like 4th and 2, could win for it. They punted instead. Haley went down and scored. And to change the game, Vermont ends up pulling out that state. But like we said, I think the rest of the campaigns from either side are going according to plan. We'll have to see what these Biden numbers mean, because like we said, I mean, he was putting up 30, 10, and 30-point triple doubles in all of these states, but against what kind of competition is Marianne Williamson? I don't know if that's like NBA level competition, but maybe, I don't know. Was it 40-point triple doubles for our guy Biden? At least he was putting up some stats before he heads into the general primary. We'll see what happens. I don't honestly. No, I haven't been. I feel like I was more locked in on the primary coverage for the last election, but does it kind of feel like this NBA season where you've got the Nuggets on one side and the Celtics on the other side, and you're just like, okay, we already kind of know what's happening, and like we said, the rest of this after Super Tuesday, nothing has really changed. So I guess that's the political breakdown. If you want to, the rest of the political coverage for the election 2024 is going to be on Rem and Sam Plus over there. So if you guys want to subscribe to Rem and Sam Plus and catch all the election coverage, we'll have it on there for you. But there was a couple of things that did want to mention. Like we said, it wasn't just Super Tuesday last night. It was also the franchise tag deadline for the NFL. So, a lot of coverage for both, but I think we know which one is definitely more important, but we'll try to talk about the franchise tag deadline the best we can. I guess you tune into Rem and Sam Plus for the important stuff. But another important NFL thing that did happen over the weekend, we got the official retirement announcement for Jason Kelce. And obviously, emotional speech, really, going out on top, pause, where it's like, the career, obviously, the way he has ended his career here, the last decade, he has had in his 30s, but then, also the rise in popularity with the podcast, and then just capping it all off with just a beautiful scene. Manning was kind of the same way, where, awesome career. And one of those guys, too, where if you are like a certain level of a media where you're, if you're considered a guy that's good with the media as an NFL player, I think there is kind of an expectation to deliver. I don't know, I don't know if there necessarily is an expectation to deliver a good speech, but it is like, okay, we know this guy has the ability to be, at least like we know Jason Kelce is talented with this kind of stuff. So when he started out the speech with like, thus I lay in the grass with the dew on, whatever, it's like, okay, we're definitely in for something special here. And, he definitely pulled on all the heartstrings of everybody that watched it. And like I said, the rise for Jason Kelce in popularity has been pretty crazy, because this was one of the NFL events where I like the girls on Snapchat were posting about this one. Shout out to the girls on Snapchat, the Snapchat stories, where like we said, the Kelce, the Taylor Swift thing, they've kind of gotten into the general mainstream culture. But like we said, there's also been this crossover now with there's this mix of, there has just been a bunch of new fans to the game of football, and maybe people too that were, everybody is a fan of football. That's why obviously football is America's sport. Everybody is a fan of football, but there was definitely people that were paying greater attention to it and actually following it on a week to week basis more closely, I think, because of, the Kelce Swift thing and because of all of that. But I think for Kelce as well, too, from a legacy standpoint, it was pretty unanimous that he should be considered a Hall of Famer, which, at end of the career, we're obviously trying to celebrate the guy. And, we're not here trying to make a zag and saying he's not going to be a Hall of Famer. But I remember at least maybe last season, or, once we started to be like, okay, the Jason Kelce thing, offensive lineman, we know kind of what the lifespan is here. And for Jason Kelce as well, too, to get out now when it seems like he's in good shape. He's made a ton of money, I think $80+ million in the league. He's got the media career set up for the future stuff, any endorsement stuff on the side. He just made the $80 million in contract stuff. That doesn't include the endorsements that he's gotten lately, all of the, the side money as well, too. So financially, he's in a great spot. It seems like from a health standpoint, he's in a great spot as well, too. So, he definitely could have returned, I think, and played at a high level next season. Everybody kind of agrees on that, but nobody definitely blames him for walking away at this point. Like, his legacy is pretty established, but the center position is one of those positions. It is just hard to make the Hall of Fame as a center. And part of that is the math of the center position, where, you only have there's only one center that can make the All-Pro team per year. So outside of like the special teamers, where, in terms of making the Hall of Fame as well, too, I guess, being a special teamer is harder than being a center, where you only have like 3, combined punters and kickers. Devin Hester is the only like kick returner, I believe, in the Hall of Fame. Maybe he even went in as a punt returner as well, too, but the only return guy in the Hall of Fame. And, well deserved. Totally agree that he should be in there. But, taking the offense and defensive positions where, the rest of the offensive line, at least you have 2 spots. You have 2 guards, 2 tackles, tight end as well, too, but you can sneak in 1 to 2 tight ends on there per season. And for the quarterback legacy thing, you don't, I think, need the first team All-Pro appearances as much to be considered, the all-time or Hall of Fame level. So, there is playoff resumes. Super Bowls can definitely help with that. Like, how many first team All-Pros did Troy Aikman make? Let's take a look here. This is not to diss on Troy Aikman, 6-time Pro Bowler, but yeah, he never made first team All-Pro. I don't think it Pro Football Reference, I don't know if it has him listed as a second team All-Pro either. In 1993, he was fifth in MVP voting. And like we said, quarterback for 3 Super Bowl teams, #1 overall pick, an incredible career. We're not saying he's not a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying from the quarterback position specifically, that type of accolade is not necessarily as important to the position when we're defining these all-time legacy things. But for the offensive lineman, that stuff can be definitely a little bit more important when ranking these guys. And again, for the center position, it's just a little bit more exclusive of a group because there is that one spot. And if you actually, look at the guys that are in the Hall of Fame, like I mentioned, there's a few special teamers in the Hall of Fame, but the fewest positions the fewest guys for a position group that are currently in the Hall of Fame, you've got 9 tight ends currently in the Hall of Fame, but Gronkowski hasn't been inducted yet. Antonio Gates, Jason Witten haven't been inducted yet either. Travis Kelce currently playing. He'll be, automatically a Hall of Famer as well, too. So those 4 guys, that puts you at 13 tight ends. And, you got Kittle lingering around in the mix. Who knows if his resume continues to build. He made his, I believe, his first team All-Pro, and he might actually have been his second first team All-Pro appearance. Yeah, his second first team All-Pro appearance this past year. He was also first team All-Pro in the 2019 season. So yeah, both years that the Niners have made the Super Bowl, he's been a first team All-Pro. Definitely, probably a correlation there. And obviously, this past Super Bowl wasn't his finest performance, but also 5 Pro Bowls on top of that. He definitely, the resume is definitely starting to build for Kittle, and for everybody that watches him, he definitely passes the eye test as a great tight end. But you got 13 tight ends, 13 tight end Hall of Fame caliber tight ends, either currently in or not quite inducted yet. And you also have 13 centers currently in the Hall of Fame, but only 8 centers have been inducted since the merger. And again, you got the exclusivity. Is that the right word? Exclusivity of that one spot on the All-Pro team. And really another reason that it's been tough to be considered, a dominant center, an all-time center, and to break into that first team All-Pro level has been because there really have been a couple of guys that have really dominated the position, especially since the merger. Like we're saying, where really, modern NFL especially, it's been, that position has been one of the toughest to achieve at. And some of the tight end stuff, you go back a little bit where you get like Ditka and some of the older guys. But, since 1970, you've got Mike Webster as a first team All-Pro guy made 4 out of 5 All-Pros from 78 to 83. Dwight Stevenson makes 4 All-Pros in a row from 84 to 87. And then Dermontti Dawson, hopefully I said that first name right, makes 6 straight first team All-Pros from 93 to 98. And, those are obviously the holy grail, the top 3 all-timer type centers, at least in the, modern era NFL. And those guys are all in the Hall of Fame. But again, really dominating that position for half a decade, nearly decade-long stretches for, a majority of their career. And again, dominating that spot. And it's been harder for the other guys to break through. You got Langer with 3 All-Pros as well in his career, and Kevin Mapwe with 3 All-Pros. I know I probably butchered that last name, but Mawae, Kevin is the first name for the people that want to look him up on Pro Football Reference. And, guys like Jim Otto as well, too, played a little bit in the 70s, but did most of his All-Pro, dominant work in the 60s as well, too. Tingelhoff made 5 All-Pros in the 60s and played a little bit in the 70s. But Jason Kelce, again, 6 of the last 7 first team All-Pros. Jason Kelce has been the center. I think Corey Lindsey snuck in 3 seasons ago now. I believe, was it the 21 season? We'll double check that quick. But Jason Kelce basically just MJ'd the center position with the double three-peat. 2020 for Lindsley in Green Bay, and then goes to LA, the Chargers in 2021, signs with them and makes second team All-Pro as well, too. It really just hasn't been healthy the last couple of years. Only played 3 games this past season, 14 games played in 2022. Didn't end up managing to make the Pro Bowl that season. But okay, Jason Kelce's dominance at the position has been equal to the level of these other all-time great centers, these other Hall of Fame centers. And really his dominance at the, it's not just his dominance at the center position. It's just his dominance as an offensive lineman in general, too, where, again, he's made 6 All-Pro teams of the last 7 years. So for his career, then 6 All-Pro appearances. And if you look at offensive linemen all time with 6 or more All-Pro appearances, there have been 21 guys that have done it. And the only ones that are not currently in the Hall of Fame are Zach Martin, guard, Cowboys, who also, currently playing, has made 7 All-Pro teams and is also, first ballot, probably a lock for when he gets in. Well, you say first ballot, but again, these things are stacked. So we get like his talent. He's definitely first ballot worthy. I guess it's just, whether or not everything lines up for him to get in. But he's not currently in. You've got Jason Kelce also not currently in. And the only retired guy that's not in with 6 or more All-Pros is Jim Thrier. And, some people might be familiar with the Jim Thrier story. For those of you that are not, he played in the 60s, again, a little bit in the Super Bowl era as well, too. But a really dominant left tackle in the 60s. I was reading an article on Bleacher Report about him that I maybe it was Bleacher Report that said that, but some article called him like the greatest left tackle of the AFL era. And, played for the Chiefs, was on the Super Bowl 4 team in 69 that won the Super Bowl. Also on the 66 team that made the Super Bowl, won the AFL that year, ended up losing to the Packers, Super Bowl 1. And they were also, the Chiefs won the AFL championship back in 62. That was before the merger. That was pre-Super Bowl. So that AFL championship was considered a world championship. So technically, 2-time world champion, 6 straight first team All-Pros, 9 Pro Bowls in 10 seasons. But post-career, there was definitely some CTE stuff and some, there was a murder-suicide that unfortunately ended his life, the life of his wife as well, too. That I'm sure definitely is part of the reason that he has been, buried a little bit, no pun intended with his career and his legacy. But again, the guys, the linemen that have achieved that, and his Thrier's legacy and like as a player, definitely worthy of, Hall of Fame level worthy. But Martin as well too, and again, Kelce is in that mix for not just he dominated the center position, but just as an offensive lineman was incredibly, consistently one of the top of the league, incredibly dominant. And I honestly don't even know if, again, the general consensus among the public is this guy is clearly a Hall of Famer, gold jacket someday. There's no question. I think if, again, comparing his dominance to the other center, it is unquestionable that he should be in. And I don't think that, again, the question is whether or not he is a Hall of Famer. The question is really, is this guy the greatest center of all time? Because, it's again, the accolades and the individual dominance, but his importance to that Philadelphia team and what that team was able to achieve with him, especially again, the later run in his career where, I wasn't around to watch the Mike Webster, Dwight Stevenson, Dermontti Dawson runs. Saturday as well too is one of the more, great modern centers, was incredibly dominant in his time, had a great run in Indianapolis. And, I definitely think he's a gold jacket guy at some point for what he did in his career. But again, Kelce, what that line was able to achieve and what their game plan was able to build around not just the offensive line, but specifically the tush push for the Eagles, where their entire game plan the last couple of seasons has been built around the fact that they know that they can get 1.5 yards to 2 yards at, on any 3rd or 4th down situation. So instead of them having to play for 10 yards every set of downs, they're basically playing for like 8 yards. And I guess that's like every 3 downs. But the fact that now the 4th down is open for them and the play calling stuff that they could do, where if it's 3rd and 5, again, they're not necessarily having to play for the first down. And, modern analytics and modern NFL a lot of teams would say, hey, depending on field position, game situation, we don't necessarily need to obviously get the first down on a 3rd and 5. We can set ourselves up for a good 4th down situation. But that's definitely more common with the Eagles, definitely more how they structure, I think, their entire game script more than just the scenario based stuff. And again, the success of the tush push, it was basically unstoppable. And that's a play that's directly behind Kelce. Pause directly, he is the key staple to that play. And they were able to make a Super Bowl behind that, and a competitive team this passing. I think losing the coordinators was a bit of a, caused a bit of a step back for the offense, but the defense as well too. Some of the Bradbury numbers, it was definitely not the best year of his career. But if you look at the Webster run, that Steelers run is pretty undeniably great. Obviously, the Steel Curtain, as a team, they won 4 Super Bowls altogether, and Webster was a part of all of those Super Bowl teams. But those first 2, they won on the first 2 seasons of his career. So he gets drafted 5th round in 1974, the 1974 draft, 125th overall. In his first 2 seasons, he's more in a backup role. And I forget, let's see who the starting center is for the Steelers at this point. I think it's Ray Mansfield. So you get Ray Mansfield still starts in 71 and, or excuse me, 74 and 75. And then Mike Webster finally takes over after that, makes his first team All-Pro in 78. And then the Steelers win 2 more Super Bowls in 78 and 79. And first team All-Pro in both those seasons. Again, widely considered amongst, top 3 in that holy grail of centers of all time. So you got two Super Bowls for the Steelers. Stacked team, Steel Curtain defense. The receivers, Lynn Swann, Stallworth, Franco Harris, Rocky Blair. We don't need to read off the roster, but it's, a stacked team, not to take away from Webster. But, the Dawson run for the Steelers, so he was also on the Steelers as well, too, in the 90s. And those 90s Steelers teams were competitive. They made the Super Bowl one of those years, were, again, a competitive playoff team. I know the first run that Dawson had on the Steelers, he lost to the Joe Montana Chiefs in the AFC playoffs. Let's see. So he makes his first All-Pro Dawson makes his first All-Pro in the 93 season. They lose, in the wild card round in 93 to Kansas City, Joe Montana, Marcus Allen. They lose in overtime, 24-27. They lose to the Chargers in the conference championship in 1994. The next season, the Chargers obviously get raked by the Niners, the Steve Young Niners that year in the Super Bowl. But that was to go to the game. They were right there and finally make the Super Bowl in 95, lose to the Cowboys, lose in the divisional round to the Patriots in 96. Another conference championship loss to the Broncos by 3 points in 1997. And then in 98, finally, I think Dawson's still at this point his last All-Pro, but Steelers were not able as a team, not quite the level they played at the last couple of seasons, and were not able to make the playoffs. Cordell Stewart had taken over the reins at quarterback at that point. 11-5 the season before, though, in 97, like we said, when they lost in the conference championship to the Denver Broncos. So the Dawson Steelers run, too, I think was obviously incredibly dominant for his time there. Let's see what the Dwight Stevenson run looked like for the team success for his run in the 80s. Played on the Dolphins, also made the All-Pro team near the end of his career. His last 4 seasons was, I guess, so, part of that 84 Dolphins team with Moreno 14-2, where they lose the Super Bowl to the Niners. And they lose in the conference championship game the next year to the Patriots in 85. They lose that game 14-3. 31. And that would have been to face the 85 Bears in the Super Bowl that year. So I think that defense was probably destined to win it. And this Dolphins team, the Moreno Dolphins team was competitive there for a while. But I know, once we get 86, and then there's really a handful of stretches, a handful of seasons here where they don't win 12 games again till 19, or double digit games in general till the 1990 season. And at that point, Dwight Stevenson no longer on the team. So again, the Kelce dominance at the position and the success for the team, I think really the question for him is this guy considered the greatest center of all time? It's not Hall of Fame, because I think, again, that's kind of a lock at this point, but I think there really is a GOAT case for this point for him at that position. And again, I think this is a major loss for this Eagles team, because it's not just, hey, we're losing a guy that is playing the center position at a high level, because again, I think Kelce could have returned for not just one more season, maybe even a couple more seasons, and played at, it's not, you don't even need him to necessarily, again, play at a first team all pro level to do what you want to do at their offense. But it's like, can he play at, be one of the better centers in the league? Can he be top 5 at that position? Can he, again, fill the role that we need him to do and still able to run all the offensive stuff around him? So they don't just have to replace that. They're not going to obviously get a guy that is going to play at the level of Jason Kelce. And I think they were able to go out and correct one of the big weaknesses where, they have some on the field personnel stuff that they're going to try to fix in the offseason. They'll probably look to add some defensive back help in the draft and through free agency and stuff for, I'm sure they'll continue to add players and build the roster out, but bringing in the two big coordinators, like we said, that losing Steichen and Gannon was a big loss for them as they were a part of that Super Bowl team from 2 seasons ago. We're not there last year. We saw what Steichen was able to do in Indy. And I thought the Gannon thing in Arizona was really impressive. That team was, they're still picking 4th overall in the draft, like they're 4-win team, I think, on the season. But, Kyler Murray was hurt for most of it. And 4-13 on the season. Kyler Murray was out, and they still, for what that roster is, I thought overachieved a little bit. And for what we thought that defense was 2 seasons ago, where we thought, super talented, but maybe even though, I honestly thought maybe the coaching was the weakness of the defense on the Super Bowl run. And clearly, I think Gannon, we misevaluated his value to that Eagles team, and he was more important than we thought. Steichen, obviously, like we said, in Indy, super bright future there. I have a lot of stock in what he's going to do with Anthony Richardson, and have incredibly high hopes for what that combination could be. But they go out and they get Kellen Moore for the offense, and they bring in Vic Fangio for the defense, which is another guy. That Dolphins team last season was decimated with injury, and Vic Fangio, even in the playoff game, was still dialing up pressure and still trying to figure out, still being crafty and still being able to get production out of his guys. And I think he's going to be a good boost for that Eagles team. Again, I think Kellen Moore as well offensively for the Eagles is going to be beneficial too. And they were playing Kansas City, end up losing 26-7. But, I thought made Mahomes have to run around a little bit. It's not like he played his cleanest game of the season or of the playoffs. Pacheco had 24 carries in that game. So, really had to focus on running the ball. Big Rashee Rice game. Again, that was, I think, was Howard out for that game, and was Kohu on Rice. Not to call a guy out. Just trying to remember what happened in that one. But I thought Fangio did a good job with that Dolphins defense this past year. I thought those were 2 big additions for this Eagles team. And if they were running this back with the same roster, I would have had a lot of stock in what that Eagles team could be as a team that could dethrone the Chiefs. I know they're in the NFC and they wouldn't necessarily play them until the Super Bowl, and we're talking about playoffs and all that stuff. But if we're teams that we have a lot of stock in next year, Eagles would have been clearly at the top of my list. But the Kelce thing, we'll see what they're able to do at that center position. Maybe now it's just, hey, the draft, that's the top priority. Again, I thought corner could have been an interesting spot there. I knew some of the corner stock is rising at this point for some of the guys, but somebody will fall. Like if Nate Wiggins and Teron Arnold and Mitchell and if all those guys, their stock is rising, that just means, Kool-Aid McKinstry might be there when they pick at 22 this year. Right now, Tankathon's got Cooper DeJean mocked to him at 22 for the first round. So again, defensive back help. But Jackson Powers Johnson, I know, is the number one kind of center interior lineman right now on the board for the first round. At least, that's the consensus at this point, anyways, when we're recording this on Wednesday morning. But Tankathon right now has him mocked to the Steelers at 20. The Steelers also need a center as well, too. But, if the Steelers want to get feisty and go quarterback, or maybe, I don't know, would Mims, they got Mims mocked at 18. Who knows if another one of these other offensive linemen are able to slide. So, if Powers Johnson is there, JPJ, if our guy JPJ is there at 22, then maybe that's just the easy fix for the Eagles to just take the number one center on the board. We saw the Ravens do that a couple seasons ago with Linderbaum, but a rookie center is not going to, with all respect to JPJ, like Kelce, we're talking about a guy that was still first team All Pro last year, even though he was saying in the press conference he was overrated. It's like, no, Kelce, you're still able to go out there and play the game at a high level, even though you don't have to talk us into you walking away. We get it. You're playing the offensive line. It's totally understandable that after nearly a decade-long career and being an all-timer at that position, you'd want to call it quits. But again, big loss for the Eagles. We'll see how they go ahead and handle it. I think, definitely. I think it's worth one win, in the terms of how we are looking at the schedule. If we're looking at the line or whatever, a win and a half, having to, the centerpiece of your offensive line. He was the one of the main guys as well, too, that was on the both Super Bowl teams, because again, the Eagles made the Super Bowl was that 19, won the Super Bowl against the Patriots with Nick Foles, but most of that roster was different that made the Super Bowl against the Chiefs with Jalen Hurts, and Kelce was one of the main guys from there. And, like Brandon Graham on that team as well, too. Fletcher Cox has been a mainstay on the Eagles for over a decade at this point. Brandon Graham, 2010 was on that Super Bowl championship team as well, too. And I think maybe the only other guy was the kicker. I think it was those four guys as the main team, because even Lane Johnson was there. Did he play in the Super Bowl? Okay, yeah. So Lane Johnson was there too as well. But still, just a handful of guys that were carried over from both the Super Bowl teams. Lane Johnson in his own right is an all-time guy. I don't know if, Hall of Fame at the left tackle, but he's been 2-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowl. Let's see what he's at on the Hall of Fame monitor right now. 32nd among tackles. Right behind Matt Light, Willie Anderson. Okay, so Jimbo Covert is in the Hall of Fame with a 63.7, and Lane Johnson is at a 53. Oh, we got Jackie Slater in the Hall of Fame at a 51. Winston Hill at a 47. I mean, we're going back into the 60s and 70s a little bit, but the bar is definitely, the bar is raised. But Lane Johnson still putting together a little bit of a resume. Tyrone Smith sitting at a 76. Jason Peters at 86. So if he gets another All-Pro or two, continues to put up the Pro Bowl appearances, he's already been in the league for a decade as well at this point too. He's 33. So we'll see the Lane Johnson sidebar. But again, the Kelce foundation piece there is going to be missed. And it's not just the on the field thing too. Again, the emotional attachment for the Philly fans rooting for this guy every week, because as just a general NFL fan, as a fan of another team, rooting for Kelce, like Kelce is just one of the most likable guys in the league, highest approval rating guy probably in the NFL, absolutely beloved. So I know Eagles fans are going to miss him. I know the rest of the NFL is going to miss this guy. And, fortunately, because of the podcast and stuff, he's not going to be going away. And I know that's a reason why, part of the reason why that, the familiar, we're spending more and more time with them, growing, continuing to be more, get that familiarity with them. And that's part of the reason that he's become so beloved as well, too. But because of that, he's not going to go away. We're going to continue to get a lot of Jason Kelce pause. So definitely excited to see what happens next for his career. We got the documentary on Prime, so maybe there's some other media stuff that he'll continue to do. He was talking about buying a video game. So, I know there's that Jason Kelce is going to continue to, we're going to continue to benefit from what his next ventures, whatever those will be. So shout out to Jason Kelce, all-time career, automatic Hall of Famer, and definitely the best center of I'd say the century is pretty safe to say. Because again, Dawson made his last All-Pro in 98. So if Dawson gets the 90s belt, Stevenson and Webster there. Webster kind of goes into the 80s a little bit, but Webster with the 70s, Stevenson the 80s, Dawson the 90s. And again, Kelce definitely the 2020s, but the 20 teens. And really, again, his dominance was definitely higher than anybody that played in the 2010s for the center position. Again, with all due respect to our guy Jeff Saturday, give him the belt for the decade, but the century belt definitely goes to Travis Kelce or Jason Kelce. The brother belt as well too will also have to be passed down. I know for the NFL, the brother belt probably goes to Quincy Williams and Quinnen Williams, but I know there's I feel like they probably had the sports wide brother belt as well too, just the best brothers in sports, because you got the Currys, Steph and Seth, but just both brothers of first team All Pro level. Last year, would have been 2 seasons ago now, they both would have been first team All Pro. Last season, Kittle got the first team All Pro nod for tight end, but I guess even the previous couple seasons before that, let's see how many times Kelce's been 4-time first team All Pro. So I get the 2018 All Pro team as well too. So three times these guys have been All Pros on the same season. Yeah, Kelce was first team All Pro that year. Marquise Pouncey was the second team All Pro. Oh, I guess Kelce was first team All Pro back in 2016 as well too. So 2 times anyways, those guys have been. But obviously both of them dominated their positions for the entire stretch. But multiple times these guys have both been the absolute top, undeniable best at their position. So again, I think sports wide they probably had the brother belt, the NFL brother belt. You got this year Quincy Williams and Quinnen Williams both made first team All Pro, and we talked about them in the midseason pod with our guy Fataport, Rippy and Fataport. Hopefully IT is made some good progress in the time that we're recording this to get our guy to overturn that legislation. Hopefully there's no filibuster going on right now. We don't want to lose any time passing this bill, but we definitely talked about that brother belt, and they had a case at that point, but just the legacy that the Kelce's had, they still had to have it. But you've got the Charlo brothers for boxing. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's any other NBA guys that would or at least that pop out right away. And I think, do the Charlos still have like belts and stuff? Let's see if we can do a quick Charlo. Hopefully I'm saying that name right. The boxing twins, you all know, the boxing fans know who I'm talking about for sure. Jermel and Jamal Charlo. You can tell I'm only a casual boxing fan, but I mean their dominance in the game has definitely been established, and those two definitely feel like the first two, at least the first 2 obvious picks. But maybe we'll do a little deep dive on who has the brother belt and report back at some point. But shout out Jason Kelce. Again, great career, will be missed, and you missed on the field, and we'll be excited to continue to see what happens off the field. Shout out to Mama Kelce as well too. As always, shout out Donna Kelce. To have 2 sons, top of their game for as long as they were for that kind of stretch is always super impressive. Shout out to both the guys. Shout out to I'm sure Sam, obviously. Shout out Travis Kelce. I'm sure he would bring up the Chiefs at some point. Let's check and see the time quick. Like we said, we do have to go to work here at some point. Give us 5 stars if you want us to not go to work at some point for the Rem and Sam pod. Okay, we do have a couple more minutes. We also have to keep this short as well too, because we're recording this post gym, and we have to try to stay in the anabolic window. We're doing this straight off the gym. I get, gym and post shower as well too. Is this the first ever post shower Rem and Sam? Well, I not the first ever post shower Rem and Sam, but first ever straight out the shower Rem and Sam post gym. Gotta try to at least get protein shake, scrambled eggs, try to get the benefits of the workout. And shout out to Sam as well too. As always, shout out to Sam, because he was talking about we were talking about the Little Tecca album on the Friday odd. He was talking about Little Tecca. He was talking about the Yeet album, and he said the Little Tecca album was his favorite album since the Champions album by Meek Mill. And he also said the Champions album was his favorite non-Drake album, which is like one of those things where it's like, okay, it's probably means it's like a top 2 or 3 album for you all time then, because there is definitely going to be a couple of Drake, no disrespect to Drake, all love to the Drake discography, but just the Meek Mill album, the Champions album is really incredible. And shout out to the Champ as well too. I was texting with the Champ last night after IT said that they had, after we had found out that the Deep State had pulled the Super Tuesday pod. We were talking, he was talking about the Champions album as well too, and there was a couple songs on there that he was like, do you remember how good this is? So I was like, okay, well, I definitely have to go back and listen to that. So that was the album for the gym session this morning, and it really is one of those albums. Again, Sam said it was his favorite album. It has been his favorite album, his favorite non-Drake album in general, up until this Little Tecca album, had been that Meek Mill album. And I think it was nominated for Best Rap Album at the Grammys. Let's double check right now. I love how on Wikipedia they update the picture. So now we're rocking Killer Mike on the page. I believe that was a 2018 drop. Did it get nominated? I think it got nominated. 2020, nominated at the 2020 Grammys, along with, this is kind of a stacked year. And spoiler alert, the winner was Igor by Tyler, the Creator. Was this the first win for Tyler, the Creator? And then also turns around and wins in 2022 with Call Me If You Get Lost. I mean, both incredible albums in their own right. Yeah, it gets nominated for Flower Boy in 2018, but loses to Kendrick Lamar. But that 2020 run, you've got that 2020 year, you've got Dreamville's Revenge of the Dreamers, Meek Mill Champions, 21 Savage, I Am, I Was, and Corday, The Lost Boy. So, I mean, this is a stacked category. And again, Tyler, the Creator, ends up winning. And to be honest, the album I probably listen to the most out of this group is Revenge of the Dreamers. It's a J. Cole album, so you all saw that coming. But I mean, it's a all-time album for the decade as well too, and just the collaborative effort of all those guys. But individually, the 21 Savage album too is awesome. Same with the Corday, and I just feel like I don't even need to say the Tyler, Creator, the album is good, because it won, obviously. I'm talking about the other nominees here. So this is a tough group for Champions to try to beat, but just going through it and seeing what songs I had in my place. Like, Sam was saying that Lil Tecca album was 16 for 16. In this Champions album, let's see how many songs it is exactly. I don't want to say nearly perfect, but definitely 19 songs, an hour 9. So the fact that Sam likes a longer album too, you've got to give it credit. And probably, I mean, every song up until Almost Slipped is I Have Saved. And then most of the songs after that as well too. So, with legacy for these artists as well too, it's always kind of a strange thing, because that's why Sam's great, and that's why you got to listen to what Sam says, because he'll just tell you straight up that, the Meek Mill Champions album is actually top 3 Mount Rushmore album of the era. But you start getting into just some of the legacy of some of these guys. Again, he says non-Drake, so I would do probably the same thing for J. Cole and go, oh yeah, this album is great except for J. Cole and all the Kendrick and all that stuff. But again, the hit rate, we use the term hit rate a lot. The hit rate for this album, for just the percentage of playlist songs, is, again, it's nearly a 19 for 19 album, which, again, and Sam also said that the 20 song mark is a big mark, and to go almost 20 for 20 on an album is pretty impressive. Obviously, a great gym listen to as well, for really good for a workout session. So shout out the champ, shout out Sam. And another album that now I'm gonna drop this past week that was really good, if you guys haven't checked it out, is the new ScHoolboy Q album, Blue Lips. And let me see if I can pull up let me pull up the album quick. We'll do a quick top 5 for the new ScHoolboy Q album. And he's another guy too, where he got nominated for a couple of his earlier ones. I mean, Oxymoron is up until this point, the classic album. Collard Greens Studio was the song, I believe, from that album that got nominated for, I don't know if it was best rap performance or best rap song, or if it was like the, best rap collaboration, one of those categories. But, ScHoolboy Q, BJ the Chicago Kid collaborating on that one. You've also got, the J-Rock feature as well too, Raekwon. And, SZA, it's a stacked album. And I think up until this point, definitely his, Blank Face LP got nominated as well too, I think. But the Oxymoron one, from a streaming standpoint, I think has the most hits. But I mean, this Blue Lips album, again, the hit rate on this album is pretty crazy. I saved most of the first half of this album into my playlist. And if I had to do a top 5, could I narrow it down to just 5 albums? Let me see. Or just 5 songs from the ScHoolboy Q album. I feel like it would be easier to go 1 to 5, but for dramatic effect, you have to go 5 to 1. Maybe the first couple of these songs won't be perfect. Freddie Gibbs. I feel like you have to put Freddie Gibbs in any top 5 list you do for any album. Is that going to be number 5, the Freddie Gibbs one? And then we'll go Lost Times. I kind of like that one. We'll go Ohio, Freddie Gibbs 5, Lovebirds 4, Lost Times, Cooties 3. We'll go Cooties 3, Lost Times 2, and Blue Slides number 1. To me, Blue Slides, hands down, best song on the album. Dare I say it's the best ScHoolboy Q song that he's dropped yet? And I would say, again, I think Blue Lips might be the best ScHoolboy Q album that we've gotten so far. So I don't know if this one, again, gets nominated at the Grammys. I get, the Grammys as well too. It's not the end all be all for all these artists. I think he is going to accomplish everything he needs to accomplish with this album drop. But, the field is already kind of shaping up to be kind of stacked. With the Drake album, I think, is going to do pretty well. The more I've listened to that, I talked about that as well too. I think we mentioned that on the Friday pod. That album, I think, is aging really well. The 21 Savage album I loved. If we get the J. Cole album this year, I would expect, that would be, I don't know what the odd, if we would have album of the year odds at this point for next year's. Maybe we'll have to, do our friends at DRF or BETSTAMP have Grammy odds? We need to get some Grammy odds on DRF Sportsbook, some more pop culture odds. Maybe we'll send an email to corporate and see what we can get done. But check out BETSTAMP as well too, for at least to find the best sports odds. It's a really clutch app. Highly recommend. I know that's a brief explanation, but to just get the app and try it. You can read the app description. It's definitely worth your time. And you can use it to find odds on DRF Sportsbook. We everything. It's all good stuff in the links in the bio if you click it and want to check out what's up. But did I say? Yeah, I said Blue Slides number 1. Also, we'll go an honorable mention to Smile, the last song on the album, like more like kind of an interlude. It's, I think maybe 90 seconds. So kind of short, not even. It's a minute 10. So like a little mini song there. I don't know if it can go into the top 5, but I really enjoy listening to that too. Fun listen. It's again, has to go on the list. So solid job from our boy ScHoolboy Q. again, he's been multiple. When you get nominated multiple times for album of the year, you're clearly established. But I think sometimes it's like when you drop the album that's not going to get nominated, but beloved. And again, I'm not saying it's not. This album definitely very well could. We'll see what the rest of the field shapes up to be. I don't know. Do we get an ASAP Rocky album this year? Let's see. ASAP Rocky album 2024. I know it's been teased now for a while. I know he was saying back in 2022 it was finished. Yeah, nothing crazy. Maybe a tour, but nothing definite on us. So, we'll see what we continue to, and what continues to get dropped. Maybe the little tech album gets nominated if Sam is able to break into the industry before the next Grammy award voting deadline. But let's just say hypothetically it doesn't, and I think to drop an album of this quality where everybody would love it, but maybe I do think that is weirdly kind of an important thing for an artist to do. Just, to continue to have good quality songs and continue to build a good library is what you're going to want from your artist. So Blue Slides is definitely going to be, it's going to work its way to number 1 on the on repeat playlist for Spotify. I don't know if Apple Music has a version of the on repeat. I'm sure it does, but for the Spotify listeners, the on repeat playlist, there's going to be a bunch of these ScHoolboy Q songs that are probably already in there as well too, because it's been a pretty fun listen since the album dropped. But I guess speaking of albums, we'll get back to you on this. But so at my grandma's house, she's got a record player, and it's been sitting up kind of unused for a while. And recently I just decided, hey, I feel like we need to get this thing out. We need to start using the record player. She was saying, oh yeah, we have a bunch of old records that she's collected and that, we can start getting those out, listening to. So we got the record player out. We got some of the albums out. There's some classic stuff in there. It's some Elvis Presley, some Lawrence Welk, like iconic stuff that is in the mix. But we definitely want to start bulking up the rotation a little bit. So if you guys have suggestions for albums, slide into the DMs. Rem and Sam on Instagram. If you guys have a suggestion for what albums we should get, comment as well too. I think on Spotify you can comment on the episodes. YouTube, whatever you guys are listening on. If there's a way to comment, please comment with a suggestion for what kind of vinyl albums to get. And I don't, at least at this point, I don't want to get like a newer album that's on a vinyl. I think, obviously you could get, Good Kid, Mad City on a vinyl, the Black Album, like all that stuff. Not yet for the collection. In order to start to build it, I think I want to start to build it with older stuff and build from the ground up and work your way forward a little bit through the history of music. Now, the one album that I would cheat a little bit and skip ahead and get, and it's maybe the album that I'm eyeing at getting first, and it obviously iconic all-time album, is The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And another important note I should mention with the comments, where if you guys have suggestion for the albums, is these have to be, again, my grandma has this record player, so these do have to be grandma approved albums, good Christian home cooking grandma album of like something that we can listen to with the family. So the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is like obviously a classic album, all time. I feel like I can even probably go to Target and get this album. I don't even know if I have to like go to the record store. Honestly, besides the late release for this Wednesday episode, the only other bummer for this is for not doing the Super Tuesday pod is I was getting the record store we have in town doesn't open until Wednesday. So I was going to hit the record store, but IT had to drag me back into the studio for to redo some of the episode, because like we said, the deep state got a little upset. But we'll see if we still have time to slide to the record store today. But we'll definitely slide today or tomorrow. So we'll report back on the Friday pod or next week with Fat Report as well too, because we'll want to get suggestions for what they say. But like Frank Sinatra is like an easy place to start, and like I like Frank Sinatra. Everybody loves Frank Sinatra. When we were talking about greatest album or greatest artist of all time with Taylor Swift, and I feel like Frank Sinatra, probably listen to more Frank Sinatra than I listen to Taylor Swift. That's just the honest truth. And I'm not saying I always listen to stuff from the 60s more. I'm just saying between those two artists, and there's I'm not going to name every artist. I listen to Taylor Swift more than that's not really the point. But like, I feel like Frank, like, what is also the best way to go about building the collection as well too? We need advice on this because like Sinatra's a good example where we could get the ultimate like compilation album for Sinatra, just like ultimate Sinatra, get all the hits, easy listen, just banger after banger, pause. But we could also get every, or get Frank Sinatra albums. And I know, you're not going to get, every song is going to be a classic, obviously, but you're going to get the, like Come Fly With Me. I know that's like one of the most popular songs, but that's also the album he had as well, too. A pretty popular album. Is that 58 for that? Number 616 on the top 1,000 albums of all time. Shout out to Colin Larkin from the Encyclopedia of Popular Music. Yeah, released in 58. I don't know what the track list is for this. We've got, Come Fly With Me, Around the World, Island of Capri, Moonlight in Vermont, Autumn in New York. So maybe our real Frank Sinatra fans will know what the bangers are from off this album. But I would say most of the older music I listen to, I've discovered through, it's not the same way I have discovered listening music now where, J. Cole, I'm going to throw on the whole album or the new album that comes out, play the whole album, find the songs that way. For the older music, it really has been actually through the Spotify playlist and the recommended stuff and, whatever Frank Sinatra song, like New York, New York. And on Spotify, you can go and do like the song radio. So we'll do New York radio, get the hits that kind of way, go golden, the whatever the name for like classic playlists are. And stuff like that. Like that's really how I found a lot of the older music. So I haven't, gone through and dug through the complete albums yet. So I don't know what necessarily the good albums are for the individual artists versus the songs. And it is easy to find on Spotify too. It's not like I'm not going to go through and do a little listening and do a little research. But I'm just saying, if you guys have suggestions, feel free to comment, suggest, do all that stuff because I'm excited to see what we get first. Like we said, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, definitely high up on the list. There's some Otis Redding stuff as well, too. That is classic. Anything in that type of stuff is going to be definitely high up on the list first. And not just music as well, too, but I feel like I'm probably going to get a couple of older comedy albums. Maybe, I don't know what did Don Rickles have? I know the Bob Newhart, that one album of the year is a classic. And if you guys like listen to the Bob Newhart, I forget what it's like, the something of the Button Down Mind. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's one of those things. If you guys listen to it and maybe it doesn't hit with the newer generation like you thought, but the fact that album won, the Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart, the fact that album won just album of the year at the Grammys, best album, beat all the music, is pretty impressive. Makes it iconic, and I like listening to it, but I like the legacy of that kind of stuff. That's iconic. I'm sure Riding Dangerfield is stuff. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm new to the game, so I'm gonna start looking into it. Actually, into the vinyl stuff again, branching out from the Spotify playlist. So shout out to Grandma for busting out the record player. It's gonna be exciting. Like I said, we'll report back, comment with suggestions. But I do think we have to go to work soon. Was there anything else major that we missed? I know there was, like we said, the franchise tag deadline happened. Brian Burns got the tag. Duggar. The Colts tagged Pittman as well, too. Everybody that got tagged, I don't think there was big surprises there. Like some teams had some choices. Like the Ravens had a lot of defenders that they could potentially tag. But, tagging Matabuke, he's the best one. Like the Chiefs tagged Snead over Chris Jones, but that's just because I think they're more worried about obviously getting Chris Jones the long-term deal. We talked about that on the Friday pod. The Ravens a little bit different. Like, hey, the Matabuke thing, it's just his value to that team, and get that locked down. So I don't think there was any surprises by who got tagged. The Colts using the tag for the first time in a while is kind of interesting. But again, they'll probably work something out with Pittman long term, especially depending on what happens this year. If they're going to wait for the next offseason or into the season to try to work something out. But besides will Burns be on the team? Like, there's some questions about will some of these guys be back. Higgins, like, I know like Burns got the non-exclusive and he'll be looking for other deals, but maybe we'll talk about all the free agency stuff and news and notes. NBA as well too. There's been some interesting NBA stuff as well over the weekend. We'll talk about that with Sam on the weekend pod. Some good playoff matchups. We just had the Nuggets with a comeback win against the Suns. We had the Lakers Thunder matchup from the weekend. Like we said, we had the Spurs going the Nuggets, come back to go to overtime, and then the Suns ended up pulling out the win in overtime. But the Nuggets come back versus the Suns, and like we said, the Spurs heating up a little bit, beating the Thunder, beating the Pacers. The Celtics, that was a comeback win as well too. The Celtics with the Cavs. The Cavs were the ones with the ones making up from the margin for that game. Ended up winning. The Cavs win 105-104 versus the Celtics last night. But we'll break down all that stuff, like we said, with Sam on the weekend pod. We'll be back with Fataport as soon as possible. So thank you guys for listening. Shout out to IT for getting this up. Shout out to you guys as well too for hanging in there for a little bit of a later drop. We'll try to get this up as soon as possible, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that before the evening. But anyways, just stay tuned to the socials, stay tuned to the feed, Rem and Sam podcast, Rem and Sam on, pretty much whatever platform you guys are looking for using on. That's, for Instagram, YouTube, whatever podcasting you guys are listening to. It's going to be Rem and Sam podcast on basically anything. Shout out Ian Fataport. Follow Ian Fataport on X as well too. That's the handle at Ian Fataport. And like we said, we'll be back this weekend with Sam. We're talking to a couple of people, so there might be some guests in the work. Like I said, we never want to promise anything. You never know with schedules, and it's not like some of the people we're trying to reach out to. They're busy people. We got a couple of people that it's just a matter of when. We're just get the dates worked out, get everything scheduling situated that we're good to go. But when we get the interviews lined up, they're going to be fun and they're going to be good conversations. So you guys are going to want to, again, stay tuned to the feeds. Stay tuned for all that. Thank you guys for listening, and be back for the next episode.